Imagine a world where two incredibly loyal bullocks show more humanity and, I guess, moral fiber than the respected elders of a wealthy family.
Right. Elders who are actively tearing each other apart over a lottery ticket.
Exactly. It is a completely bizarre contrast. But that is the vivid, unflinching reality we're bringing to you today on the Deep Dive.
We have a really fascinating stack of notes right here in front of us.
We do. And our mission today is to unpack the genius of the legendary Hindi author Munshi Premchand. Specifically, we're examining 4 distinct excerpts from his classic collection, Mansarovar Part 2.
And, looking at Premchand's work isn't just an exercise in literary appreciation. He was holding up this high-definition mirror to early 20th century Indian society.
Yeah.
We're going to explore some heavy themes here: patriarchal oppression, the spirit of rebellion, human greed, and the rigid caste system.
And what's going to surprise you, honestly, is just how sharply relevant these narratives are to human nature right now.
Absolutely. He wasn't just writing about his era. He was dissecting the psychology of power and vulnerability. And that doesn't really change.
No, it doesn't. And that is the perfect framing for our first source, which is a story titled Kusum.
Yeah, we need to start with a slightly somber tone here.
We do, because the emotional landscape of this text is just brutal. So we're introduced to Kusum, who is a highly educated, capable young woman, and the narrative unfolds through her father, Navin.
Right, he's sharing her desperate letters with a friend.
Yeah, and the specific details of these letters, they really paint a painful picture. Kusum is writing them on delicate pink scented paper.
Pink scented paper, yeah.
She's pouring her soul out to her husband.
Yeah.
She is the absolute picture of an ideal, devoted wife, basically telling him she'd do anything to please him.
But she is met with complete, freezing silence.
Total silence. No explanation, no warmth, just a void.
What's fascinating here is the contrast Premchand sets up between the physical beauty of the letters, that pink scented paper, and the agonizing emotional pain contained within the words.
It's a brilliant device.
It really is. It highlights the facade of a perfect traditional marriage that's actually hiding a deeply dark reality. The pink paper represents the societal expectation of femininity and marital bliss, while the ink carries her quiet destruction.
I struggle with Kusum's perspective here, though. I mean, she becomes so desperate that she literally offers to drink poison if that's what he wants.
Yeah.
She compares herself to a beggar pleading at the door and him to a king who won't even glance her way. Why does Premchand have her offer to drink poison? Does that undermine her intellectual realization later, or is he making a different point about survival in that system?
I'd say it's less about survival and more about the exhaustion of fighting a ghost.
Fighting a ghost. I like that.
The silence her husband uses is a calculated weapon. It isn't just that he's cruel. It's that by withholding any reaction, he denies her very existence.
Wow, yeah.
Premchand is dissecting the systemic power imbalance inherent in traditional marriage of that era. He's making it clear that this isn't just a story about one unusually cold husband.
Right. It's a sharp indictment of an entire society.
Exactly. A society that conditions women to strip away their own self-respect, to view themselves solely as property, or as servants whose only purpose is to appease a master.
That makes the contrast she draws with her friend Shano even more heartbreaking.
Absolutely.
She looks at Shano, who recently got married, and has this joyful, affectionate relationship where she and her husband are equals. And Kusum realizes her own situation is just a cage.
Precisely. And look at Kusum's intellectual journey across these letters. She starts with self-blame, assuming she must have done something wrong to earn this silence.
Right.
But eventually she arrives at a crushing logical conclusion based on her lived reality. She notes that since ancient times, women have literally been treated as property.
Practically indistinguishable from cattle or land.
Yes. A man could just lock a woman away, entirely dictating her existence.
Yeah.
Premchand used this fictional narrative to expose deep, suffocating societal flaws that everyone at the time just accepted as the natural order of things.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit more, because we see that silence used as a weapon to break a human spirit. But Premchand flips that dynamic entirely in his next story.
He really does.
Instead of a human losing their agency, he shows us 2 animals claiming theirs. Let's shift gears to one of his most famous works, Do Bailon Ki Katha, or The Tale of Two Bullocks.
This is a remarkable piece of literature. It operates on multiple levels simultaneously.
Yeah, it serves as an animal fable on the surface, but it runs incredibly deep as a political and social allegory.
Exactly.
So the story follows Hira and Modi, two beautiful, incredibly strong Pachai bullocks. And they aren't just beasts of burden, they share what almost seems like a telepathic bond.
They understand each other perfectly.
Reading silent cues and everything. Now, they start out with their loving owner, Huri, who treats them with dignity. But then they're sent away to Shuri's brother-in-law, a man named Gaia.
And Guy is incredibly cruel. He beats them.
He does. And the emotional beats of their journey are fascinating. They are so heartbroken and insulted by Gaia's treatment that they refuse to eat the dry fodder he throws in their trough.
They would literally rather starve than accept his disrespect.
Right. And that refusal to eat is their first act of nonviolent resistance.
You have to remember the context of when Premchand was writing here. This was during the Indian independence movement.
Ah, right.
So Hira and Modi's quiet defiance mirrors the civil disobedience happening across the country. They're drawing a boundary, demanding basic dignity.
And they find an ally in the most unexpected place. There's a little motherless girl in Gaia's house who sneaks out at night with two simple rotis.
Just 2 pieces of bread.
Yeah. It's hardly enough to fill their massive stomachs, but it is enough to fill their hearts. That tiny act of human kindness gives them the moral strength to eventually make a dramatic escape.
But their journey gets even more perilous, right?
Oh, yeah. They eventually get caught and thrown into a kanji house, which is a local cattle pound.
And the kanji house scene is really the crux of the allegory.
Yeah.
Think of the kanji house not just as a pound, but as a prison for the marginalized.
Right.
When Hira and Modi arrive, they find a whole host of other animals. Horses, goats, donkeys, and they are all near death.
They've simply given up.
Exactly. They're lying on the ground, waiting for the end, entirely broken by the system that captured them.
But Hira and Modi bring this spark of rebellion. They realize that if they don't do something, all these animals are going to die. So they use their horns to batter down the thick mud wall of the pound.
They bust a hole big enough for the others to escape.
And they practically force the apathetic animals to run for their lives. But the ending of this scene is what really stays with you. Modi ends up tied with a thick rope, and he can't get out of the compound.
Right.
So Hira, who is completely free to run away and save himself, chooses to stay behind. He refuses to abandon his friend, even if it means he'll likely be sold to a butcher.
This is a profound commentary on resistance, loyalty, and the actual price of freedom.
Yeah.
Hira and Modi are operating on a vastly higher moral code than the humans they encounter. I mean, think about their rules of engagement throughout the text.
Like when they fight the bull.
Exactly. Earlier in the story, when they're fighting a rogue, aggressive bull in a field, they refuse to attack him once he falls down. They have honor.
They refuse to strike a fallen enemy.
And they refuse to abandon each other in the kanji house. I would ask you, the listener, to pause and consider what it really means when an author shows animals displaying more solidarity, empathy, and honor than the human society that surrounds them.
Premchand is putting a stark question right in front of us. Who are the real beasts here?
It's a brilliant inversion. The animals have a rigid moral framework, while the humans are completely unmoored.
Which transitions perfectly into our next source material. Because if the Bullocks operate on a higher moral plane, the humans in our next story are diving headfirst into the mud.
They really are.
We're looking at a story called Lottery, and here's where it gets really interesting. The tone shifts dramatically here into pure, dry satire.
He takes the very serious subject of greed and the corrupting influence of the promise of wealth, and just turns it into a total farce. The dark comedy really speaks for itself.
It does. So the plot revolves around an extended family frantically scrambling after a massive 10 lakh rupee lottery is announced. And the hypocrisy Premchand outlines is so sharp.
Oh, it's hilarious.
You have Bede Thakur and Chote Thakur, the older men of the family. For their entire lives, they've been staunch atheists. They openly mocked religion and tradition.
But the moment this lottery is announced, they suddenly become the most devout men in the village.
Right. They're taking early morning holy baths in the river, feeding flour to ants, going to the temple, and praying fervently.
That transactional faith is a central theme. They are treating the divine like a lottery official who can be bought off with a few prayers and some ant food.
Exactly.
Premchand exposes the fact that their previous atheism wasn't a philosophical stance, it was just a lack of incentive.
That transactional faith is exactly what gets me. It's as if they view God not as a moral compass, but as a cosmic
vending machine.
Yes. Put in a few prayers, get out a jackpot. And the peak of this absurdity centers around a mystic called Chekad Baba.
Oh, Jakat Baba.
His blessing consists of throwing heavy stones at people's heads. I mean, people flock to him, hoping to be struck. And the character Prakash willingly goes to get his head busted open.
He comes back home, covered in blood, wrapped in bandages, but he's thrilled.
He is. He genuinely believes that the concussion and the blood guarantee that he is going to win the lottery. He thinks he's paid the cosmic price.
It raises a fascinating psychological point about what people will endure when blinded by greed.
Yeah.
But notice how Premchand frames the psychological breakdown of the family unit. They haven't won a single dime yet, but the mere thought of the prize money instantly fractures them.
They start having these vicious, legally minded arguments about individual versus joint family property.
Before they've even won anything.
Right. Who bought the ticket? Under whose name? Who gets what share if the family name is drawn? The greed completely overrides their familial bonds before the drawing even happens.
They're tearing each other apart over a hypothetical.
It's insane. And the punchline is masterful. When the winning numbers are finally announced, the prize is ultimately won by a completely random person in America.
And instantly, the Thakur brothers' newfound religious devotion vanishes.
Just gone. They fire the temple priest, complain about the money wasted on charity, and go right back to being miserable atheists.
Premchand masterfully exposes the fragility of human morality. It is incredibly funny, but it's deeply cynical about what the pursuit of money does to the human soul.
People only behave morally when they think it will pay out.
The moment the incentive is gone, the veneer of principles washes right off.
It's easy to laugh at the Thakur family's hypocrisy when it only costs them their pride and maybe a bump on the head. But what happens when that same moral fragility and systemic cruelty dictate the lives of the most vulnerable?
That's the real question.
And that brings us to our final and definitely most poignant story in this deep dive, Dudh Dam, which translates to the price of milk.
This story hits you right in the emotional core.
It really does. We're introduced to a young boy named Mangal. He is an orphaned, untouchable boy, a Dalit living in the absolute margins of a wealthy village.
The imagery Premchand uses here is stark and unforgettable. He strips away any romanticism about village life that audiences might have held.
Mangal's entire existence is heartbreaking. His only worldly possession is a piece of rough, scratchy sackcloth that he uses as both a blanket and a bed in the crumbling ruins of an abandoned house.
And his only true friend in the entire world is a stray dog.
Named Tommy. They share everything. There's this one incredibly tough scene where the rich boy of the village, Suresh, forces Mangal to get down on all fours and act as a horse for him to ride.
And Mangal complies just out of fear and hunger.
Yeah. And the tragic reality of Mangal's day-to-day life is that he and Tommy just wait in the shadows of the wealthy family's courtyard. They hide in the dark, hoping to eat the leftover scraps, the juthin that are thrown out from the wealthy family's plates onto the dirt.
They are surviving on discarded garbage, treating a thrown-out piece of bread like a feast.
It's so hard to read.
To really grasp the weight of this story, we need to provide the crucial context that Premchand builds up. This is Premchand forcing his society to look directly at its most marginalized members, the people it has deliberately made invisible.
Right.
And the hypocrisy he highlights is sickening. The rich family, Suresh's family, actually used Mangal's mother to wet nurse their own child when he was a baby.
They drank the milk of this untouchable woman to sustain their own lineage and save their child's life.
That is the price of milk the title refers to.
It's sort of a bitter irony. The price was paid by Mangal's mother, but the debt is entirely ignored by the wealthy family.
Precisely. Once the mother dies, they treat her orphan boy worse than an animal. They refuse to touch him because of his caste, they cast him out of their home, and they feed him scraps from a distance.
The connection between the outcast boy and the stray dog is entirely deliberate, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Premchand isn't just adding a sad detail. He's showing how the rigid caste system completely strips away basic human dignity.
It equates a human child to a street animal,
reducing him to a state of mere survival. It is a devastating critique of systemic inequality and the utter moral bankruptcy of those in power who take what they need from the lower castes and then discard them.
It is a punch to the gut. And it really brings all four of these narratives together so powerfully.
It does.
Whether we're looking at the suffocated, silenced wife in Kusum, the noble, loyal beasts in Hira and Modi, the comically greedy, fractured family in the lottery, or the completely forgotten, marginalized child in Mangal.
Yeah.
Premchand uses these sources to paint a sweeping, sometimes uncomfortable, but always deeply human portrait of society. He doesn't let anyone off the hook.
No, he really doesn't. And I want to connect this directly back to you, the listener. You have to wonder what it was like reading this in the 1930s. But more importantly, think about how these exact dynamics still play out in our world today.
Oh, definitely.
The transactional nature of modern morality.
Yeah.
That is alive and well. The power imbalances in relationships that silence one partner and strip away their autonomy, still happening globally. And the invisibilization of the poor. Treating marginalized communities as if they are somehow less than human or undeserving of basic dignity. That remains incredibly tragically relevant.
Knowledge of these stories is most valuable when we apply it to our own understanding of the structures around us.
Exactly. Premchand's work isn't just history. It's a tool for critical thinking today.
Premchand was an absolute master at diagnosing the human condition, and his diagnosis holds up entirely. We've journeyed through the quiet despair of a trapped wife, the political rebellion of two farm animals, the chaotic greed of a fractured family, and the tragic isolation of a forgotten child.
Each story forces us to look in the mirror.
They really do. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Mansarovar Part 2. We want to leave you with a lingering, provocative thought to mull over on your own.
Premchand wrote beautifully and sharply about the specific societal margins of his era.
But if he were alive and writing today, observing our modern world with its own unique, glaring blind spots and inequalities, who do you think would be the tragic heroes and the invisible outcasts of his stories today?